What is happening? Welcome to the train station. Today we're going to talk about some puppy training basics and quite specifically applying the train rule. Now this is something that one of our instructors, she came up with this amazing infographic and
acronym.
It is an acronym, yeah. And it explains how you can apply this train rule to all of your dog training. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's show. I want to welcome you to the train station. And I just so happens I have my lucky train whistle here.
Oh boy. We can't have a train station without you blowing that thing a million times.
Absolutely not. As much as I can. The truth is that I don't get to toot my train whistle at any other point than when we hang out here in the train station. So I'm excited that we get to toot. Is there some other time that the train whistle gets used?
I was going to take it a different direction, but I think I should wait until we're not 2 minutes into the show.
Okay. Still don't know what that means, but I love the fact that you're here with us.
Every time you say the word toot, I think it's funny.
Oh, okay. Well, it is funny. I see our moderator, Dan the Man Luton, is with us. Madison Winters, we want to say hello to all you guys. Now, I've tried to add a little bit more. Every single train station, I like to do a little bit more and something a little bit different. So I've got some stuff set up. I'm hoping for no technical difficulties, but we'll see. You know, this is a work in progress, and I want to bring a bigger and better train station to you every single week. I see some people jumping in the chat, and I can always count on Eden Fraser to drop a
yes
in the chat. We're also streaming to Twitch, so I want to say hello to anybody who's watching us here on Twitch, on our Twitch channel. And
hello.
You're looking for, if you follow Twitch, we often will do our podcast. We have a weekly podcast that Instructor Shannon and I record, and we will do we'll do our live version of that podcast on Twitch. So if you are a Twitch user, check us out over there.
This guy's from Minnesota, Tutor J.
See, there you go. Perfect.
You're at the right place.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Tutor J. There'll be lots of tooting that happens here in the train station. So I'm glad you're with us. So now the pre-show is over. Now, before we can really get things fired up here, anybody who's been in the train station before, you know that Dan, the moderator man, is always in the chat. He's a moderator extraordinaire. Let's go live to Dan and see what he is up to. Let's see if we can just go live to him, get the live feed set up. Send out to Dan. Well, okay. Oh, all right, Lucy Lou. It's Lucy Lou. Oh, there he is. Hey, buddy. Dan is ready to rock and roll. It's good to see him in the chat. Now, what's interesting about that to me is Lucy Lou is currently a grade 3 student. And I didn't know that working computers was part of the grade 3 curriculum.
Yeah,
I thought it was grade 4.
Maybe she must be like ahead of the class.
Makes sense to me. We have,
I'm actually
Dan,
really impressed that she would sit there to let those earphones stay on her head.
You know what? Actually, I think we did talk about this. I talked about this with Steve, instructor Steve. I think they are doing music listening and teach the dog how to put the headphones on in grade 3, and then you progress to computer science.
That's high tech stuff.
Yeah, it is high tech stuff. Let's get right down to business. The pre-show is over. My name's Ken Steepe. Today we're going to be talking about some puppy training basics and how you can apply the train rule to everything you're doing. Even if you're training an older dog, you can apply this train rule to get super reliable skills. I'm Ken Steepe.
I'm Kayl McCann.
And welcome back to McCann Dogs. Here's a little snippet of information for you guys who have listened to that bark forever and are like, wow, that's such an annoying thing. That's me playing a G chord on my guitar. I almost said a G string. Playing a totally different thing. A G chord on my guitar, but one of the strings was out of tune. So it's just a little bit wrong. And then that's Hippie Shake barking in the background. So that's a little snippet for those of you who are in the train station today.
I smile every time I hear it.
You know exactly what's going on here. Now, I want to welcome Shelly, Marianne, Eden, Madison, Melanie, Justine, Alper, Shandy Blake, Francine,
Hi,
Beth,
Shandy.
Lisa, Cynthia, Tona, Tudor, and
Justine
everybody
Walker.
else. Yeah, everybody else who's here. Let's jump into some puppy training. Now, if this is maybe the first time you've stumbled across the channel, my name's Ken Steepe. I'm a professional dog trainer, and this is Kayl McCann. We teach at her family business, McCann Professional Dog Trainers, where we get to help more than 500 dogs every single week to overcome their dog training challenges. So we'd like to take some time in the train station to, answer some of your questions. We love to be able to, help you overcome some of these things. And the train station is the place to do it. We have lots of pre-recorded content, 1 video a week. But if you have like some challenge that you're facing or some question that you might have about puppy training, tonight would be the night. Tonight is, we're going to focus on puppy training and using that TRAIN principle. So let's get into our question of the day.
What is the question of the day?
The question
I never know
of the
this
day.
ahead of time.
I know, this is always exciting for Kayla to find out. So what is the number one skill you struggle with? And let's apply the TRAIN rule.
I
And
love it.
very soon you're going to learn what the TRAIN rule is specifically. So I'm kind of pumped to get that
That's
going.
good. It's really good.
Actually, you know what? I see some people dropping their locations in the chat. Let's do a roll call. Where are you watching from? I see Jessica is watching from Colorado.
I see Marianne Moran from Fairbanks, Alaska.
Very cool. You know what? I got sent an Instagram picture today from someone who watches in Germany.
No way.
Yeah, beautiful little Wheaten Terrier.
I've competed in agility in Germany before.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Yeah.
Really cool.
Beautiful. Really,
awesome.
really nice picture. But we love seeing that from you guys who are joining us from all over the world. It's really exciting to welcome you here to the train station.
Yeah.
This one's for Tudor.
We forgot to say, if you're going to answer the question of the day, write, what are they supposed to write? At Q.
Do
Because then we can see it easier.
QOTD, and I may have changed it to question of the week. Whatever.
Oh.
QOTD, and we will know exactly what your question is and how we can apply the train rule. So we're gonna
perfect.
We're gonna literally.
Thanks, Dan.
Perfect. Yeah, Dan the man coming to the rescue.
Yep, he's all over it.
We are going to answer those questions. We'll get through the TRAIN principle a little bit, and when we start rolling out that information, you may be able to figure out where to go next. But it's amazing once you apply this rule to your training. It's amazing how consistent your skills will be. I see lots of interesting
from
places.
Turkey, Costa Rica, Stony
Guelph,
Creek,
South
Hamilton,
Georgia.
Ontario. Boring. Betty Ann, it's not boring. That's where we are. That instantly makes it cooler.
We're not in Hamilton, but we're very, very close.
We are very close.
Illinois,
Toronto,
Oklahoma, South Carolina,
Nigeria,
Costa Rica. Wow, all
Vegas.
sorts of
Ken
interesting
took me to
places.
Vegas for my 30th birthday.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It was so fun.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. Okay, let's get into, let's drop some stuff on the screen and let's get into some training. Are you guys ready for that? I hope you are, because it's about to happen either way. So, bringing new things to the train station. This is my first attempt at a single graphic. So, talking about the train rule, and the train rule is T.R.A.I.N. And let's look at the T and we'll see where we can go with this. So the first T in the train rule is teach. So this is definitely going to be the most common step that all of us probably do with our dogs. This is where we're, using luring. We're using, it could be any methodology. That's what's
shaping, capturing.
For sure. That's what's so great about applying this rule to your training, because no matter what you're doing, you can apply this. So the teaching part is probably we've all been there. I mean, with all of these steps. So often we hear someone will say like, oh, my dog's pretty stubborn, and that's why I had to come to you guys. You just won't do what I asked him to do.
My dog's not smart, or
yeah, for
whatever.
Sure. And what's maybe happening is that you're skipping a step. So if you make sure you make it through the whole train rule that we're going to talk about tonight, then you are way more likely to have success. You're way more likely to have reliable skills, and that's ultimately what we want.
Yeah, and I think it's important too. Some people will say, well, my dog's not doing this, my dog's not doing that, and I often will reply, well, have you trained this aspect of it, or have you trained this? Well, no. So you have to remember that when dogs first come into your family, they don't know really anything. They don't really know what their name is. They don't know the rules of the house. So our job is to train our dogs to understand what to do in so many different contexts. So train or teach seems like a pretty easy one, but it's kind of the base of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So whether you're following food, luring, whatever, what's important is that before you leave this step, before you leave the teach in train, that your puppy has a clear understanding. Mm-hmm. Your puppy really knows what you expect of them. And this is best done in like a quiet place where you can be successful, where there aren't like a bunch of
no
things
distractions
to distract your puppy.
Yeah, to give you an example, one of our favorite places to start teaching our dogs to walk on a loose leash, or even to come when they're called, is we have a long hallway in our house, and that's like the training hallway. When we have a new puppy, we will do like little restraint recalls back and forth.
Shandy Blake dropping the super chat with $5.
No way!
Yeah. And if you drop a super chat, you light up the train station.
Woo, woo, woo.
For Shandy Blake, I want to
sounded
thank you.
like a train whistle there. Thank you, Shandy.
Thank you very much, Shandy Blake. And look at that, the lights are going. This is the fun we get to have here
in the swimming
in
corgi.
the train station. I know that's so much fun. But and thank you, Shandy, for that. That's super helpful. And you know, these super chats are definitely help us to, you know, bring new features to the train station. So you know, if you we definitely appreciate all of those donations. Thank you so much.
That's always so fun.
Yeah.
So anyways, I was talking about our training hallway. So we practice our recalls, we close all the doors, we get rid of all the other animals in the house, and Ken goes at one end of the hallway, I go at the other end of the hallway, and we literally just call our puppy back and forth, teaching them their name and building value and making it fun to run to us. But there's no other distractions around, so they do it right over and over and over again, building a strong understanding and teaching the puppy to really love what they're doing. Because that's really, you know, one of the ways that you're going to get your dog to rehearse something is by making that behavior really enjoyable for them. So that's something that we do a lot with our own dogs.
For sure. Absolutely. So we've covered the teach part of train. Now let's move on to the R. And that's rehearse. And this is such an important thing to do with your dog, no matter what skill you're working on. You know, you can't get through some of these things in one training session. You can't get through some of these things if you're only teaching your puppy or your dog in training to sit in your kitchen, you know, or in your hallway, whatever the thing is. I'm going to bring us back for a second. I'm getting used to this. Trying to add features and things are happening. But rehearsal is so important. Dogs need repetitions of and rehearsal of these skills to really have a fuller understanding, you know, of what you expect for your dog. I don't know. I mean, agility is a great example.
Absolutely. Rehearsal is really, really important. You know, when we're teaching our dog something new, we try to break down the behavior into small pieces, and then we practice each of those pieces building as we go. And then sometimes what often happens is if your dog is used to that style of training, my dogs are really used to rehearsal. So often what will happen if I do something, you know, one way 3 times, for example, the dog often goes, oh, I know what you're going to tell me to do. And they'll start to guess. And so sometimes I'll even sort of switch up how I rehearse and try it a slightly different way. But rehearsal is really, really important because it allows the dog to really get a stronger understanding. And that's going to build into a little bit more independence, which we'll talk about in one of the other letters.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. So rehearsal, and I mean, I think we all kind of know this, the repetitions that you put in. The other great thing is you're going to see your dog being more responsive, having a better understanding, you know, as you work through some of these exercises. So you make sure that you're not a step skipper as you make your way through this training. So
why do you sound like a pirate? Yeah.
So I don't remember where it comes from. It's from a cartoon somewhere. I can just see it or hear it in my head. And he says back scratcher. It's back scratcher. So
I love back scratches.
Yeah, I know you do. But today we're talking about the step skippers, and don't skip any of these steps because you will be much more successful with your dog training. So I'm seeing some great questions coming in. Let's get through the next one, and then we'll come back and we'll start answering some of your questions that are coming in the chat.
Funky Monkey likes your step skipper. Step skipper.
She often gets really excited. She's just off camera, and you guys will hear her. So getting to A, and A means add distractions. Now this is
a good one.
This is such a crucial part of your dog training. I can't stress it enough how important it is to be able to add some challenges into your training. You know, while you've taught your dog to whatever the outcome is that you want. So let's just use as an example, sit in one position. So with the sit, we've shown our dog, we've trained that muscle memory with them. That's a great part about the rehearsal as well. It's really showing them exactly how we want them to be.
Almost.
Yeah. And very familiar. So now we've got them sitting. We've rehearsed it several times. And now we need to add some distractions in.
Yep.
Something that I want to just sort of take a short step back on. And this will come sort of to the part of adding distractions. But when we're talking about rehearsal, rehearse it in many different places because this in rehearse and add distractions sort of blends together a little bit. So if my dog's sitting really well in the kitchen, or maybe it's walking on leash, whatever the thing is, my dog's performing it really well in a quiet environment, you need to bring it into some new places, bring it into some new, bring in some new challenges. And really make it, about reinforcing great behaviors out in the backyard, as well as, in your front driveway, or maybe it's on the sidewalk in front of your house, or, I mean, we don't have a sidewalk, so maybe it's, at the neighbor's house with permission, of course. But, adding some of these distractions, maybe they're environmental, maybe it's pre-placed. I like these ones. Controlling your environment a little bit.
Yeah, I love doing that.
So you can really reinforce a behavior by, teaching your dog. Let's sit. We'll just use the sit specifically, and then we'll jump into some of your specific requests. But you've taught them to sit in your living room, and now you've rehearsed it a bit. Kitchen, hallway, downstairs, upstairs. Now you're going to take it into the backyard, and you can pre-place some distractions for them to really help them to understand what your expectation is.
Yeah, I really like doing this for teaching my dog to walk on a loose leash. So I mentioned earlier, I'll practice up and down the hallway where there's literally nothing going on. And then I might practice in the driveway rather than going for my half-hour walk like around the block where I'm going to be faced with a bunch of distractions. It could be almost a surprise sometimes, and I might not be ready to conquer those yet. I might just walk around my driveway for 20 minutes. And if my dog's doing really well at that, I'm going up and down in different directions. I might bring out some of my dog's favorite toys and kind of plant them in different places. Or we really like to put treats in like an old Tupperware container and then poke holes in the top so that it's really smelly, but that the dog can't go and grab the treats without permission. And then you can practice walking around that. So it's a really good idea when your dog's starting to learn a behavior that you start to proof the behavior so that it's not just, they can't just do it when you're holding a bag of treats in your hand or when you're right in front of them or when there's nothing going on. A well-trained dog is a dog that can do a behavior in any situation the first time that you ask and can do it happily and willingly as well. So the distractions part is going to get into that proofing phase. So your dog's going to understand to be able to do that behavior even though there's other stuff going on at the same time, and that's going to sort of blend into the next part of the phase.
For sure. Let's jump into the questions. I've now the questions are going a little bit quickly, so I'm going to grab as many as I can and try to put them in the queue. That way we can answer them. Now, if you have a question, so today the question of the day is, what is your number one skill that you struggle with? And we'll help you to apply the T.R.A.I.N rule to your specific scenario. So if you're sort of watching thinking, oh boy, I don't know if this is a great struggle or challenge, I bet there's lots of other people that have a similar thing. So if you ask your question, you may be helping out some of the other viewers. So let's jump into this. So Eden Fraser says, Ollie loves to greet everyone he knows very enthusiastically, which isn't the best being an assistant's dog. Yeah, so let's talk about teaching Ollie to sort of not be so excited when he greets.
So we do an exercise in our classes called sit and accept praise, and we also work on a leave it as well, so that the dogs are learning to assume a more controlled position at the handler's left side. And when they're there and they're in that controlled position, they are to hold a sit on a loose leash, even though there may be distractions around. And as we build into the program, one of the distractions that we use with the dogs is having people walk up and stand in front of them or try to pet them or, hand things to the student so that the dog started learning to sit quietly and allow all this stuff to happen in front of them. And if the dog struggles, one of the very first things that we'll do is reduce the distance. So we'll have the person sit further away with the dog and then have the distraction at a little bit more of an achievable distance, have the person reward the dog very generously, and then slowly bridge the gap and have that distraction come a little bit closer. Some dogs are super distracted by toys, some food, and there's some dogs that like other people is just the be all end all, like that is just the most exciting thing. So you might need to train different distances depending on what distraction you're using. It might be that like you can have toys and food right in front of the dog's face and going crazy and the dog's perfect, but the person comes, you might have to start with them a little bit further away. But just what's really important is that if the dog is making mistakes, that we're helping them quickly. So the moment the dog leaves the position that we want them to assume, we would just very quickly repeat sit and shorten up and place them gently back into our side. And dogs learn within 1 second. So we need to reward within a second of a good choice, and we need to redirect or correct within a second of a bad choice. So in this case, your dog's right beside you. So it's really easy. You just shorten up and place them back. And the dogs really figure it out very quickly. Every time they get up, you put them back and a light bulb goes on and they go, oh, I think maybe you want me to hold a sit here. And when that happens, another one.
Super chat, lighting up the train station.
Woo!
From Beth Dorr. Well, thank you very much, Beth. We want to welcome you and thank you for joining us here
the flashing lights
at the train station. And I get to toot my whistle.
So good. Thank you so
much. It's so
much.
fun. That's really, really nice. Thank you, Beth. We certainly appreciate it. And you get the swimming corgi. So
Look at him swim. He's a
pretty
swimmer.
Great question. Thank you very much, Beth. And thank you, Eden, because you set us up perfectly for that getting to the add distractions part, because that's where you are with your training. You need to start rehearsing the good stuff without Ollie leaving your side. And adding some distractions, bringing people in closer. Yeah, and Kayl, you just were speaking of a light bulb going on.
You're
and
right.
Beth made the light bulbs go on and off.
Oh, that was pretty good.
Multi-talented.
Well done.
Beth says, I can't even begin to tell you how much McCann dogs have helped me. Well, thank you, Beth. It's so nice to hear. Really, really nice.
We aim to please.
We do.
Keep sticking around and asking us more questions. Hopefully
because we have lots of answers.
Yeah, keep
Most
helping
of them are correct. I'm going to jump to this one. Now, this isn't something we'd necessarily apply T.R.A.I.N to, but let's. I know you've answered this in previous train stations. From Cynthia Strickland, how do you stop a nervous pee?
This often has to do with dogs that are a little bit more apprehensive or nervous, obviously. So most often we find this happens when people are trying to greet the puppy. So a couple just quick fixes would be to discourage people from leaning over and bending over into the puppy's space. That can sometimes be a little bit intimidating when you have a dog that's already really soft in nature and then they're sort of feeling a bit crowded. Also encourage people to greet your puppy in a really calm speaking voice and calm manner as well. Unfortunately, human beings, when they see puppies, their voices go up a few octaves and their arms flail.
It's hard to not get excited.
They just literally turn into crazy people.
Yes.
And I'm guilty for it too. But it's not really helpful for a dog that could be overwhelmed by that. So when you have a dog that's nervous, people should just approach calmly, even ignore the puppy.
It's amazing how helpful just that step can be, because you break that cycle for the puppy.
It's massive, because people often reach over and they go, oh, hi, puppy, puppy, puppy. And that's exactly what the puppy doesn't want. And then that makes them nervous. And then for some puppies, it makes them pee. So, discouraging that really makes a big difference. Generally dogs get a little bit better with that as they get older. They get a little bit more control of their bladder, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're magically going to not be nervous anymore. That's going to take a little bit of work. But there's a couple tips just to get you started.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Helping the puppy, putting the puppy in a good situation where it's not going to get worse.
Totally. Great. Okay. Let's go to Chelsea Clark, who asks, how to teach a puppy to pee on a grass patch on the back patio. He'll go as soon as we leave the gate, but he won't use it on the patio at all. And this is something we actually taught with the teach your dog to go potty on command. Is
your neck stiff?
No.
Oh.
Why?
You just look like you're funny looking at me.
I am funny looking. I think these guys will agree. If you bring your dog to that location and allow them to, even if you start with that, it sounds like a patch, like a specific patch that maybe she's moving around, pee on a grass patch in the back patio. Yeah, so if you can even take that to somewhere where your puppy already likes to go pee, and you can rehearse that, capture that behavior. So when your puppy starts to go pee, you can start to praise, and we use the term good potty or good hurry up. And, we'll praise it over and over again. And then we'll, and this is, the dog needs to start to go potty before you add that word. But what your dog's going to start to do is associate that word with that action. And then you can start to, get to a point in a nice and quiet environment. You get that, the cue, which is in this case, they start going potty and then they go pee. You start to bring the cue and the action a little bit closer together. And you can ask your dog eventually when you are practicing it in a quiet environment, because that's so important. But you can tell your dog to go potty or go hurry up. Now, you don't want to repeat yourself too many times, but you're going to discover that those things flip-flop, they switch, and you can start to ask your dog to go potty, and he'll start to do it. He'll start to do it. When you're doing that, as that grass patch is in whatever location, start to bring it closer and closer and closer to whatever the final spot is that you want to use that grass patch on, and you'll start to see that skill. Not only now do you have a dog that goes potty on command, but he'll start to associate that grass patch with that action.
Yeah, and the other thing you can do is, take advantage of times in the day where your dog has to go to the bathroom.
Great idea.
Like morning, for example, and take them out and take him right to that spot right away so that he doesn't have an opportunity to relieve himself anywhere else. And if he has to go bad enough, he's just going to kind of go to where, it's the easiest.
Yeah.
And that's another way to start to break him into the habit of going to the bathroom in that spot.
Did you say first thing in the morning?
I did.
Okay, yeah, good. I just missed that part as I was reading. Yeah, because that is a great time, because they've got to go. So from Beth Dorr, one of our super chatters tonight, trying to keep too many schnauzers calm. I can train separately, but when they get together, it all goes out the window. So this is going to be a great way to apply our teach and rehearse and then add distractions. Now, if you've got maybe someone you can train with, or you can keep one of your schnauzers in a location where they can't really dive bomb your training. That's a great way to start adding those
like
distractions.
in an X-Pen or a dog run or even a crate, if your dog behaves in the crate, that would be a really good way to sort of bring them close together and sort of use one another as a distraction, opposed to having them both on the leash in really, really close quarters. But having a second person, as Ken suggested, can also be helpful. That's probably maybe not always convenient, but that would be a good option. And then you could also consider the training equipment that you're using as well. So if you find that, just having them on a regular leash, walking them side by side is really difficult, you could even try something like the gentle leader and have them wear that so that you can control them and calm them a little bit more without getting into a big tussle with them.
Yeah, the other thing I just thought of as Kayl was talking is be careful that you're not setting yourself up to be training the wrong behavior. We talked about rehearse a little bit, the R in our train acronym, or the YAR in our train acronym. And what you don't want to be doing is allowing those two to be together and then you're calling one of them off and they're not listening, because essentially
erasing all that great work you
right
did.
You've been working so hard to get those great responses, and basically they're finding one another pretty entertaining and pretty engaging and of lots of value. And if you're asking them or trying to call them and it's not working, then you just need to stop right there, make sure they're both on lines, and then you can separate them, work on that skill specifically. But be careful that you're not rehearsing the bad stuff where you call and say sit and ask for all these things, but the rehearsal isn't enough, and the added it's too much distraction. The other dog's far too much distraction.
Too far along the train acronym than what you're ready for.
Yeah, well, we're going to get to the I in the end very soon. I just want to answer a few more of these questions. I wanted to drop this one in there just because. Shady Blake.
She did that after we went crazy from her
yes.
her super chat.
I did see that. So from 000 Cloudy, I see, I have to send that again. I've got a 5-month-old pup that doesn't like to be touched. He doesn't bite, just runs away. I go to the park, walk every day to make sure that she sees people every day, only on her terms. She will approach them. Are there any tips? And what would you talk? So there's a couple things I think that you really should be working on. One is handling, some gentle, non-invasive handling, simply taking her collar, simply petting her. One of the problems is that, if you go to do some handling and your dog's like, I don't like that, leave me alone. And then you're like, okay, sorry, buddy. Your dog will very quickly learn that every time they're like, hey, get away from me, they get exactly what they want. There might be times when you have to handle your dog. Maybe you need to check their paws. Maybe you need to take their collar. Maybe you need to pick them up. Who knows? You just can't predict what sort of handling you'll need to do. But simply spending some time every day, again, it could be just gentle petting, rewarding for that, maybe taking their collar. We have a handling video on the channel. I think it would be really, really helpful for you. And I would definitely try some of that handling at like a mealtime. So maybe at your dog's breakfast or dinner, you can just do a little bit of handling. And maybe our moderator, man, and he may have dropped it in the chat already. I see there's a few things. But Dan, if you haven't already, which he probably has, if you could drop the handling video in the chat for Cloudy, I think it's going to be really helpful for you.
Yeah, and I think it's also really important. I think you sort of touch base on the end that you're sort of letting the puppy kind of do things on their terms in a way that's good, because it kind of sounds a bit like the dog's nervous. Running away is usually a sign of the dog's a bit worried. So you don't want to be forcing the puppy to be in situations that they're really not ready for. That could actually create more issues. So just take it slow. If you go to the park every day, that's fine. But you don't have to go up to every person you see, every dog that you see. Allow the dog just to sort of be in that environment and not have to feel stress.
Right.
Build the confidence up, and then you will start to notice a change in the puppy, in their confidence, and then you can maybe start to build in things slowly. But there is such things as flooding, where people will just sort of put their dog into a situation where maybe they're not ready for, and although we think it's helpful, it actually does the complete opposite.
Right.
So just be aware of that. Take it very gradually.
For sure. No, I'm glad you added that.
You're welcome, hon.
Thanks, Kayl. Question of the day from Madison Winters. I'm getting a my border collie puppy in June, and my parents have no experience with training a dog. They think it comes trained, and are trying to control what I do, unsuccessful things. I missed the end there. Did you catch it? Trying to control what I do, like unsuccessful thugs for training. Help. Yeah, Madison, I'd just be really clear about what your expectations are, or what your hopes are with your puppy. And be a great communicator about what you want to do with your puppy, what expectations you have, what your goals are with whatever it is, whether it's agility or even the simple obedience stuff, and try to manage it as best you can. And I think as long as you communicate it with them, I suspect they'll be much more respectful of your wishes with your puppy. So let them know exactly what you want to do with that.
I find too, if you have people that are a little bit unsure about things, sometimes if you involve them in some training so that they understand kind of what your goals are, what your expectations are, and they can sort of be involved in some things with the puppy. Maybe have them do some tricks with the pup, or have them hold your puppy while you do restraint recalls, those types of things. Because it will involve your parents a little bit, and it will also teach the puppy to kind of get to know them a little bit as well, which often once the puppy starts to like them, then it's really easy to be into it back. So that's a couple things you can try. And then, if the puppy's your responsibility, then you can just decide what happens and what doesn't happen. Put the crate in your room. That's what I did when I was little. When I was very young, I was lucky though, my entire family trained dogs, so I didn't have to worry about other people not knowing what to do, but I really wanted to do it myself. So I had my crate in my bedroom, and I would feed the dog and walk the dog, and my dad would be walking like our 10 other dogs, and he would ask, "You want me to walk your dog?" And I'd say, "Nope, I'm going to do it." I don't know why I was like that.
No, that's the other thing I just thought about. I see a follow-up question from Claudia, and I'm going to answer that in just a second, or speak to it in just a second. But the other thing I find as a dog trainer, we have all sorts of families come in. If one of someone comes in to train their dog, and their spouse is not that interested in following the rules,
more than you know.
Yeah, it happens quite a lot. And what's such a powerful thing is to tell them the why. Can you not allow the dog to jump on the couch? And here's why. I'm struggling a little bit with leadership skills, or the dog's not doing a great job listening. And here's what we can do instead. We can work on some of these things, or maybe they can lie on their own bed, or whatever the thing is. But if you really let them know the why behind it, I think it'll be a lot more successful, because it just makes a lot more sense.
And remember, at the end of the day, everything that we're doing is for the benefit of the dog. The dog comes first in our mind. So, if the dogs are getting mixed messages from different family members or friends or whatever it might be, it can create confusion for your dog, and then it can really slow progression or send it in the wrong direction. So it's important that we're doing what is best for the dog's learning. And sometimes if you spin it that way for people when they're kind of not really understanding, everybody has a soft heart when it comes to the dog. So usually people are more open to it then.
They want you to be successful. I just wanted this to follow up from Claudia. Thanks. He would say it's a more social anxiety thing. So Kayl spoke to flooding and a little bit of desensitization for Claudia, and I think that's going to be really helpful. Find a distance where your dog can be successful, and start working on some skills. Do some stationary exercises. Build confidence, at a great enough distance where your dog's like, okay, I can do this. This is not that frightening. And then you can start to reduce that distance over time. But this is the adding distractions part, or maybe partially the rehearsal part. You need to rehearse the good stuff. Help your dog to be right at a distance away from those other things that you feel that your dog might be anxious about, that they're able to do it right.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to jump right back into the I in just 1 second. I want to answer some of these before we move on. Recall around other dogs. I'm working at grade 2. My dog Murph, high-minded, has a good recall except around other dogs. Not sure how to practice this so that he can be successful. Now, what advice would you give to Melanie on that question?
Well, when you're working around, if you're trying to specifically work around other dogs, it is very helpful to do that if you're practicing around dogs that also have some type of training as well, or the other dogs can be immobilized. Because if you're trying to practice your recall and the dogs that you're practicing around are, running and chasing your dog and sort of making things more challenging, you're not going to have a lot of success. You could also take your dog to an area where there could be you could go to an off-leash park, for example, but don't go inside the off-leash park, go outside.
Yeah.
So all of the other dogs are contained behind the fence. They're doing their own thing. And you find a spot somewhere around and practice your recall. And if you're a grade 2 student, you need to go back to putting the long line on, saying come, adding your automatic pop to ensure that they turn.
Yep.
And then make sure that there is enough motivation and drive to get to you that it's worth your while. Maybe consider what rewarder you're using. How is your timing? What are you doing when your dog gets to you? Are you just grabbing the dog right away? Or are you really building a lot of value for sitting in front?
Bye, Eden.
Think about all of the steps. Why is your dog choosing other dogs over you?
Right.
Why is that happening? So those are some things to consider. And then on top of that, not allowing your dog to rehearse it doing wrong. So if your dog does not have a reliable
Exactly
recall,
where I was going. Yeah.
gosh, we're
Yeah,
just
we're like connected at the hip.
one. That's weird. That's really weird. So if you're not getting the dog to make a good choice, off leash or around other dogs and with their recall, then you need to take that luxury away from them until you have a chance to work through it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's just easier to let the dog go and, not really worry about it, but you're not fixing your problem. In fact, you're sort of going to make it harder to fix because you're making it worse. So remove that possibility from the dog and try to train through it.
And we talked about step skipping when we were applying this train rule to your dog training. I feel like maybe, if you get too far, if you get to the add distractions, which is other dogs, you're not successful, take a step back. So rehearsing multiple recalls in environments with no distractions. And then you can start to include some other distractions that aren't other dogs. The worst thing you can, and that we sort of touched on this a little bit earlier with the question from Beth, but the worst thing that you can do is set your dog up to, when you're not sure what the result is going to be, and then test them when you have been unsuccessful in the past. So if your dogs are chasing around other dogs and playing and having a great time, if you call come and you aren't 100% sure in training and you're not sure that they're going to come, then you need to do some training. Put a long line back on them, work some rehearsal, add some distractions. But in the training phase, as we're working through this, make sure that you're always setting your dog up so that if you're not sure what result you're going to get, you can help them to be successful, because the worst thing that you can do is water down all that hard work that you've done by setting them up to maybe make a mistake. We're going to so when we get to the end, we're going to talk a little bit about how dynamic the process of dog training is. And instructor Shannon and I recorded a podcast earlier last week, or something, it's the last couple weeks ago, whenever. And we talked about dog skills are use it or lose it. There are times when if you haven't used a certain skill in a long, long time and you ask your dog to do it, they might not do it because it's been so long. It's just like if you were to take an algebra test once a year, and in the rest of your year you aren't paying much attention to your math skills, you're going to want to brush up on some of the stuff. So you need to be training things. You need to be like going out and trying out some of your whatever skill is that you're working on. Recalls is a great example. And when we get a little bit further in tonight's show, I'm going to tell you what Kayl and I do to prevent that so that we don't lose those skills. So I see a couple questions, Marianne, Deborah. I'm going to get back to those, but I don't want to miss out on the next step. And I don't remember where I set it up. So let's get to the increase expectations. So this might be, we talked about how you can add distractions. Maybe this is increasing your distraction level. Maybe this is having an expectation that your dog's going to do is going to sit faster, is going to run in on your recall with more enthusiasm, and you can reward them as such. And this is an important part. So as we made it to increase expectations, I want you to keep in mind that when you're getting, this is a great way to build drive, build desire and drive for your dog doing behaviors, is you move that bar up just a little bit. And each and every time the next time your dog gives you a great result, they sit really fast. Maybe they,
bring the toy back
really excitedly. You can treat them.
They do a really fast dog walk.
Right. You can treat them like that's a really big deal. You can jackpot reward them. Why don't you tell everybody to talk about just for a moment what jackpot rewarding is and the benefit?
Yeah. So jackpot rewarding is just sort of a silly nickname that we've coined for giving your dog, a big reward, a bigger reward than what you would normally do. And we know that dogs recognize when the rewards are different. So they can tell a yes from a yes to a yes. They can tell that there's a difference. in your happiness or, their performance based on your reaction. So often, if we really like something that we'll see, we will jackpot reward it, which sometimes means we will have like an extra big play with them, or we'll give them additional treats. Not like all at the same time, but like one treat, two, three treats, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we just sort of fire it like a Pez dispenser at them to make it a big deal. Or, in agility training, I might food reward something, and if they're really good, I might give them food, and then I would also give them a game of tug, or I would like throw the toy and like make it a big deal, so that the dog goes, okay, what I just did, you seem to really like that, so maybe I should try it again. Dogs repeat whatever they find rewarding. So our job is to reinforce positively things that we like, and they need to know the difference between things that we're so with and things that we really, really love.
Yeah, and this can be fun. Like this can be a really fun twist on your training. So I'm sort of thinking about some of the things we do in our advanced grades. So maybe you ask your dog to sit when you're facing away from them.
Yeah.
Increase your expectations, and if not, you're going to help them to be successful. Maybe you can
we also call this like proofing.
It's proofing. Yeah, it's exactly what it is. You're adding some challenges to your training, and when your dog is giving you a really enthusiastic response, or when you get a snappy sit or a great turn off of a tough distraction, you let them know that is exactly what you want. Yeah. And what you're going to see in turn is a dog who wants to work harder, a dog that loves to train because it's exciting and fun, and you are exciting and fun. And I think so many little things in dog training can be fixed if you have a more engaging owner.
Yeah, I see this all the time. I'm a pretty loud trainer. I can be pretty obnoxious sometimes.
Can you guys believe that? Right? I don't know. Surprises me.
And I feel bad sometimes when I have my dog in class. I literally just came from class. I'm in an agility class.
Chantel,
oh my God.
Dropping the super chat. Thank you for the $1, Chantel. That's really cool. You can light up the train station, and you get the swimming corgi. So thank you very much. That's really, really nice. We do appreciate that. Yeah, it's very, very cool. And guess what else you get? You get the train whistle. Thank you for the super chats. You guys can see how much I enjoy tooting on the train whistle. It is so much fun.
Anyways, what I was trying to say was... what was I trying to say?
I don't know.
Oh, I was at a class with my own dog, and every time she would do something really well, I was like very excited. So I was, screaming and running around and tugging with her and like making a big deal. And a couple of the other dogs in class had a really hard time staying with their owners because they were like, oh my gosh, that lady's like going crazy. That looks like a lot of fun. Because dogs are really attracted to motion and sound and excitement. That's why they chase after things that they're generally not supposed to. So we try to bank on that. We know they love to chase, that we know they love that type of drive. So we try to incorporate that in our training if we can. The other thing I was going to say about the increased expectations and the whole proofing thing is another great way that you can do this is change the location of your distraction. So you could like do things where the distraction was between you and the dog. So for example, I could like throw a toy out, send my dog out to it, and then before they get to it, I could yell like, lie down, and see if they could do that even though the toy is right in front of them. So I'm really proofing. So if they're chasing a deer or they're running away from me really quickly, wanting to go after something, if I ask them to come or lie down or whatever it is, I know I can get a response because I can assert through that without actually doing it in a real life situation.
And this isn't forever. I don't know if you touched on that, but you don't.
I did not touch on that.
For us, it's hard. I find that especially our male students, for whatever reason, us guys are a little bit more reserved. We need to be
more fun, guys.
Yeah, we're a little bit more reserved. And I can't tell you.
I love it when there's guys in class that like really engage with their dog. It's awesome.
You really can unlock that potential in a dog who might be a little bit unsure, or that dog that might be like, okay, I'll recall, or I'll come to the come command, but I'm not going to be that excited about it. The moment you get exciting and you get bubbly, you really seem to have a spell yell over your dog. They don't think about the other things in the room. They're really focused on you, which is really, really great. But it doesn't have to happen forever. You don't need to be walking down the street. Okay, good. Let's go. Way to go, buddy. All right. Wait. That's something you do at the beginning. That's something that you're doing to get success, to get you through the rehearse, add distractions, and increase your expectations part. And maybe occasionally you can throw it back in. You can reintroduce some of those exciting things as you are adding new challenges or whatever the thing is. But
do you remember years ago when I was teaching you how to run fly ball and I had to teach you the clap and slap trick?
Yes, I do. I do.
Ken was running one of my border collies and she would come back, but then she didn't want to like play with Ken because she was like trying to look for me. So I had to like show him like the special move that I would do where you have to like clap your hands and slap your legs and clap your hands and slap your legs. And he looked at me like I was crazy when I first, because he was like, seriously, you want me to do that? And then you did it and she was like in the palm of your hand.
Yeah.
She was
she loved that. Yeah. I'm getting great times. It was awesome. Shandy says, it's true. My dogs prefer Kayl's enthusiasm to mine.
You're pretty exciting, Shandy. I have this like obnoxious squeaky voice and I think it just like does something crazy to dogs.
No, it's not obnoxious. I did marry you, so.
You're right.
I want to say, Melanie, forever. Melanie says, thanks. We always have a long line on 100%. I will try a dog park for training. Now, be careful, Melanie. Make sure I would go to a distance that you know you're going to be successful.
Outside the dog park.
Yeah, and then gradually introduce some of these challenges. Because if your dog's already feeling overfaced with, too many dogs being around, you want to work in a situation where you can be successful. And then you can, in rehearsal, remember the R, and rehearse these great things, and then start to add more distractions. So, and it sounds, I think she really knows what we're talking about, but I think that's a great point to make for the for some of our other people that are watching. Daryl and Luna, hello guys, just getting home with Luna. We'll have to watch the replay. Well, thanks for joining us, Daryl. It's always good to see you here. Remove a couple of these guys.
Can I just jump in for a second?
Yep.
Someone just jumped on and said they're late to the party. Can you explain the train rule again? So
Yeah.
I won't like go into detail, but basically it's been a while since we've sort of talked about the whole thing.
Yep.
So we're talking about the idea of TRAIN. It's sort of an acronym to help you remember sort of the steps that you should go through when you're teaching your dog to do something. So T stands for teach. Obviously, it's an easy one when you're teaching your dog. Oh.
Dottie Kirkland.
Man.
Dropping the super chat in
God.
here. Lighten up the train station. Here comes the corgi.
Do we look extra exciting tonight?
I know.
Like,
well,
what are we
maybe
doing?
We are extra excited.
What are we doing
But we
tonight?
want to thank you for donating to the train station. And just because of your amazing donation, you're going to get a...
There are so many toots in here tonight,
I know.
guys.
I'm tooting all over the place. I can't stop tooting. And there's your swimming corgi.
Look
So
at him swimming.
thank you very much, Dottie. We really appreciate it. That's really, really cool. Thank you for the super chat. I hope everybody's getting tons of value from this.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned that, we have been away from my slides. It took me forever to set these slides up for you guys.
Show your slides
I'm
again.
gonna, yeah, we're going to slide 5, and this is the N in your train. Oh, I'm gonna have to drop this. Stand by. See, this is what happens when I speedily try to get things done.
Speedily
So,
get that off
new
there.
places. So this is, we're talking about try lots of different environments. And this is through all levels of the challenge, all parts of your training, all of your distraction, or all of your, using all different distractions. But this is also the maintenance phase. Mm-hmm. This is also why it's so important. As I mentioned, Shannon and I were talking about, it's that use it and lose it idea. This is where, with these new places, you can take these skills. So something Kayl and I will do is we'll go for a walk with our dogs. And
we do that often.
We do. And we'll have maybe, one walk we'll have a bunch of treats with us, and we'll reward the dogs for coming in once in a while. But randomly we'll ask a dog to come, and then they'll come in and they'll get, lots of food reward, but it'll just be random. It won't be every single time. And, we won't be in a specific spot on our walk, but we'll practice this stuff.
Keep them guessing.
For sure. In the maintenance of your skills, and it could be something as simple as the sit or the off or whatever the thing is. Those new places, as you're practicing all of these skills, introducing new challenges and distractions, not only locations, but, reinforcing with those higher expectations, with those jackpot rewards when your dog does a great job. And maybe it's just a little bit less excited if your dog does an okay job. Let's talk about that for a second, starting to differentiate.
Yeah, so when you're working on something, if sometimes you say come or sit or whatever the situation is, you call their name and they like whip around and they respond like super fast. It's important that you react to that, in a very upbeat manner to let them know. But it also means that later in the day, if they're sniffing something and they're more distracted and you call them and they take their sweet old time to turn around to you, you don't want to then be like, yay, hooray. You need to show your dog that you have a certain expectations. When I call your name or when I ask you to do something, I expect you to do it a certain way every single time. And if they don't do it the way that you want, then you need to work through that, whether you follow through with a placement or you redirect them or whatever it might be to fix them. But what you don't want to do is get into the habit of repeating the command, or I see a lot of people say, sit, hey, sit.
Yeah.
And then they start speaking to the dog in like a sort of an annoyed tone. An annoyed tone is, I don't know why, I apparently just randomly got an accent. But that's...
What accent was it?
I don't know. I really like to speak with an English accent though.
Yeah, it's strange. Anyways.
So because I don't want to speak to my dog in an irritated voice in order for them to listen to me, it's not very nice. So, just think about how you're responding. I think it makes a big difference. The other thing that I wanted to say in regards to the N for the new places is that one thing that I think is really important to know about dogs and how they learn is they're very, very situational learners. So they can learn to do a behavior in a certain location extremely well. And then you could take that exact same dog and that exact same behavior and you could put them somewhere new. And sometimes it's like they've never heard it before in their lives. And it's not even in that moment that the dog is being disobedient or jerky or whatever it is. It could just mean that their mind's a bit blown and they're in a new location and they're thinking, well, is this the same thing? So when you're just starting out training something new, that goes back to our teaching and rehearsing thing for T and for R is make sure that you're practicing a lot of different locations. And when you go to that new location, even if you made it to like the third progression in like the living room, you're going to go back to the first progression when you go outside rather than assuming that you're going to be at progression 3. We want to just start at a base where the dog is going to be mostly successful because that's going to build a stronger understanding and more value for the exercise. And then you can make it harder from there. But, if you're thinking to yourself, gosh, I'm so frustrated. My dog's not really responding right now. I don't really know what the issue is. Think about the T.R.A.I.N. and did you miss anything? Like, did you skip steps? And is that why it's not working?
Yeah.
Because sometimes what happens, lots of times when we have a new behavior, we don't really run into a lot of snags because we're dog trainers and this is our profession, but it's because we really thoroughly go through each of those components of teaching the dog.
Yeah, I'm just going to put that back up on the screen.
Yeah, each of those components of teaching our dog something new. And because we go through those phases very thoroughly, it means that when we get to the end, like that new places where we're taking the show on the road, we don't really run into a lot of problems because all of the holes have been filled. And then as you get more experience in dog training, what will start to happen, and this is something that I feel is a strength of mine now, is that when I start to see a hole in my dog's training or even in my students' dog's training, I can pinpoint it really quickly and say, okay, I see a hole forming. We need to go back and we need to do this so that we don't get too far along and then go, oh no, now I got to go back and now I got to fix this. So as you start to get more experience, you will get better at that. You'll start to recognize where the weaknesses are, and then you'll be able to address those before going forward.
This is really interesting. And for those of you that are have stayed here for the whole show, here's a little. I'm going to drop some knowledge. So we all know, if you've taken a psychology course,
I like when you set things up like this because I get really excited.
I love psychology, and I loved psychology when I was in school. It was something that I really enjoyed. And if you've taken a psychology course,
he brainwashed me to marry him.
What's that called?
Actually, you kind of did.
What's that called when you mesmerize somebody?
Hypnotize.
Hypnotized you to do. So Ivan Pavlov, we all know about his ring a bell, the dog salivates. Something that most people don't know, even like psychology professors, because it's just not that applicable to them, was that Ivan Pavlov started to see some of these results. Actually, his experiments were like physiology based. They weren't necessarily behavioral. They were actually had more to do with like some of the autonomic responses in your dog. That's besides the point. What I want to speak to is the fact that when he invited some of his colleagues over to view these incredible results he was seeing when the bell would ring, dog would salivate, he brought these people in and he wasn't getting the response. He was doing the exact same tests that he was doing, but he wasn't getting a response from the dog. Same thing would happen when, some of his assistants, they would be setting up these situations. They were doing the training, or they were doing the experiments, and they'd say, okay, it's here, it's happening again. They'd bring Dr. Pavlov in, and the dog wouldn't get the same response. What he discovered was something that he termed the investigatory reflex, and that's actually an evolutionary trait. So your dog, if they don't perform as well in these new environments, when you take them to new places, as you're rehearsing these skills, it's just not going as well. It's not their fault. It's something, that all dogs naturally do. It's evolutionary to keep them safe. They're very aware of their environment and their surroundings. And
some dogs more than others.
Some dogs more than others, for sure. So Hippie Shake, our toy poodle, she is a predator to most animals.
I often get worried that birds will come and pick her up and take her away.
For sure. So she's a dog who is she's hyper alert of her surroundings. So that's something that I want you to keep in mind, is that, all dogs.
She was the first dogs where those bumblebees that hang around the grass, the big ones.
Yeah.
She's the first dog ever that was a distraction for my recall.
Yeah.
Because she would.
It's almost the size of her head.
I know.
Yeah. But I want you to keep that in mind. So as you're working through some of these things, it's natural for your dog to get distracted. What you need to do is to rehearse successful repetitions with them, to increase your expectations with them, add distractions, increase expectation, and then take it to new places. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's jump into some of these chats, see some great questions coming in. Now, Marianne, we kind of covered this a little bit. My dog will not come when called. I think I have lost his attention. So I want you, Marianne, to go back to the rehearse part. So if you started teaching this, you need more repetitions. You need hundreds of repetitions before your dog really starts to connect the idea.
Repetitions of the teaching phase, though, not the testing phase.
Right, absolutely.
And just so you guys are clear with what teaching and testing is on a recall, teaching is when you set the dog up so that they will come. So that means that you add a little pull on the leash, to make sure that they turn, or you have food out or a toy out and you're luring them to come to you every single time so that they're not doing it wrong. What a lot of people do is they don't spend enough time on that step, and then they just start testing it and they take it out, in the backyard and they say, come, and they assume that, the 3 times that they've shown them before, now all of a sudden the dog's going to be able to come no matter what. So go back and train the dog a little bit more with more repetitions of doing it successfully. What you cannot rehearse is the dog hearing come and then not hop toing and running directly to you. So just be careful of that and make sure that you're practicing with your dog on a long line. We recommend for recalls something that's 20 to 30 feet long so that your dog can have a bit of freedom to run around and play, but they're not actually truly off leash. And if you need to get control of them, you can do that very easily at any time.
Mm-hmm. Great. We're going to have to rapid fire this just a little bit. Ronnie Lynn, Hem Street. I went to school for behavior analysis, and a lot is based on some of Pavlov's and Skinner's teachings. Yeah, Skinner's was a fan of Pavlov's. McCann Dog's method is exactly what I learned about behavior in classes. Yeah,
oh, cool.
Very cool.
Yep.
Deborah Kibble. I know that you asked this a while ago, Deborah, but hi from New Zealand. Many thanks for helping me prepare my spoodle pup that arrives in July. I love your work. Well, I'm glad you could join us, and we're happy to help you with your puppy. And a hello in New Zealand. I know it's turning winter there, I think. I have a friend in New Zealand. Yeah, he's in New Zealand, and it's getting colder there. It's their winter, moving into their winter.
I don't think they get winter, do they?
Well, yeah, they do. Some areas get quite cold. Yeah.
I need to learn more about New Zealand.
Broner, yeah. Hi, guys. I have a 16-month-old Yorkie trying to get him adjusted to a steel frame bed. Any suggestions? He can't get on him by himself. And I saw Dan, our incredible moderator, man. He did some follow-up questions to see if Brenda thought it was fear-based. And she thought he might be a little bit worried about it. So how would you introduce that bed to her puppy?
I don't really know what the bed means. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's elevated. How would you introduce a dog to something that they were a little bit worried about?
Well, just speaking specifically to this, I don't know if I would, if you have a little Yorkie, I don't know, but a steel frame.
Oh, did I send that up on
bed.
The screen?
Maybe use something a little bit softer so that it's a bit more encouraging for the dog to get on. But if a dog is worried about anything, the easiest thing to do is to see if you can lure the dog up with some food so that the dog is getting on and they're more distracted by getting the food. And if they're not that interested in the food, then you can do it, when they're really hungry, or use a really high value reward. Take the legs off the bed so that it's flat on the ground, so that it's a bit more achievable. Find a way to make it easier, and then build the dog's confidence, and then slowly bring it up into whatever height or location or formation.
Make it easier
that you want. But if
it's like teaching a fly ball box almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I want to say we'll see you, Shandy. Shandy's leaving the stream. Thank you for the super chat. That was really, really nice. Sarah Sachiko. I have a dog who has good training, and I want to get a puppy. I've heard that a puppy may make the other dog jealous. How can I avoid this? Sarah, we have the perfect video for you. And Dan, if you could drop this in the chat, it's if you search McCann dogs, how to introduce your puppy to your other dogs. We have quite a thorough video talking about that. But I love the idea that you're sort of thinking about their relationship, because first things first, you need to build value for you. You need to teach your puppy that you are worth listening to, that everything great comes from you before you introduce it to your older dog. And it's not necessarily something of as much a jealousy, but you will struggle if you put the two of them together right away. You're going to have much more success if you really focus your time on your puppy and your puppy's time on you. Question of the day. I like this one. I added it because it reminded me of one of our dogs. Tona Johnson says, whenever I play tug with my pit pup, he starts shaking his head violently. Is this normal? We smile because we have dogs that do the exact same thing. And I always think it's so funny when they get like this. So just talk about that for a second. Hummer was even better. One of our older dogs.
It's a lot of dogs will do it. They're just trying to kill it. It doesn't really mean anything bad. It's just the dog's having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We actually encourage our dogs to tug like really intensely because they really enjoy it, and it makes the game of tug more valuable, especially if we're doing it with the dog. And of course, we'll implement some control aspects to it, like, letting them only grab the toy on a command and teaching them to give the toy up to us when we ask them as well. But when you actually give them the permission to play with the toy and you guys are tugging together, let them go crazy. It's so fun. But just make sure that you also can stop the puppy and calm them down. And you can even start with doing a bit of a food trade. So when the puppy has the toy in its mouth, try to immobilize the toy and then offer a food trade just to get the puppy comfortable with giving things up. But no, it's not a bad thing though.
Daryl and Luna, number one challenge is counter surfing, but I think it's our fault. We've got to work harder at it. Yeah, and Daryl, there's a video on the channel that will help you out to show you some of those progressions. It's going to take some supervision and some consistency, but I know you can get there. I know Luna's really smart. Let's get to Melissa. She said, when Stormy and I returned to classes a couple weeks ago, it was like being in a new place for him. It took a bit to settle in. Yeah, this is a great example about how you bring those skills and you start applying the T.R.A.I.N to those scenarios that you're working on.
Yeah, especially if you're like in a new hall or maybe a new class of dogs and the dogs are trying to figure out the dynamic of the room. Yeah, and so that's why it's good to get back to class and to do different locations and things.
Now we're on expediting this, but I thought this question was great from Lamb Chop. My 6-month-old Doxy has stopped responding unless he chooses. The key: he watches my hand in my pocket. When he sees my hand move to my pocket, he responds. Now this is
smart dog.
This is super common, Lamb Chop, so common, and it has to do with how you're giving him the information. So if you're always going into your pocket first, then saying your command, what do you think the cue is going to become to him? Or you've got a piece of food out and then you say the cue. He's going to be so distracted by that piece of food that this is his focus, not this. So every time you're teaching him a new skill, a new behavior, even if you have to backstep, even if it's just one skill, maybe he doesn't, whatever the thing is, but all his other skills are great. You may have accidentally conditioned him that this is now the cue, or going into your bait pouch or into your pocket is the cue for something, and then he'll give you attention. What you need to do is make sure you have a line on and be able to follow up, help him to be right. Let's say it's the sit or it's a respond to you. You need to be able to turn him back your way and then, encourage him in whatever the thing is. You need to replace him in a sit and show him how to be right. And then after a few seconds, you can reward him. But make sure you're not giving him that information out of order. Mm-hmm. Jessica McClung, and I know Jessica had asked a question earlier on the channel, and I wanted to jump in this one. I did not have you in my life when we got our second dog, and in his eyes, our oldest dog is more important to him than us. Is there anything I can do to help this, or is it too late?
It's not too late, but I'm not going to lie, it's harder now. It's definitely harder.
But not impossible, because
No.
we have fixed some of these types of situations.
Yeah, we've ourselves gotten older dogs. We actually got a dog at 9 years old one time that we had to sort of reroute his lifestyle. The thing that would be really helpful, but this is going to take a lot of work, so you need to be willing to do it, is separation. So try to separate the second dog from the older dog in as many situations as you can. Have them sleep differently, walk them separately.
Yeah.
Take one dog on a car ride, don't take the other dog. Take one dog to the park, don't take the other dog. Spend some really quality time with that second dog. So you need to build a stronger relationship. It is extremely common for people to get a second dog or a third dog and not be as successful with them, because they just let that dog just spend all its time with the older one, and then they bond so quickly.
Yeah.
And now you're not an important part of their life anymore. So separation is really important. It's extremely helpful. It is a big pain in the butt because it's a ton of work, but it's not a forever thing. It's just a temporary thing until you start to see, your bond start to build between you and the dog, and it's pretty easy to see it happen. But that would be our suggestion when we get a new dog. Our puppies don't really spend any time with our older dogs for like the first several months of their life.
Yeah.
It's just all about us.
We do, when they get to a certain point, we will take them out on our walks with all of our other dogs, but that puppy will be on leash or a line so that they can stay close to us.
Constantly calling them back away from
really
the other
building the
dogs.
reinforcement. Because imagine what you're placing all the value on. Those dogs know how to communicate with each other, and they're, especially if you have like a herding breed or a sight hound or one of those dogs that like loves to see motion. That's a pretty valuable thing. Just the moving is a valuable thing. So you need to be more valuable than that when you call.
Yeah.
So really focus on those things. Now we are. I told Kayl that I wouldn't keep her any longer than 8:30 because she's preparing for this huge seminar that she's got this weekend, and she has to go back over to leave the studio, head back over to the agility arena to get it ready. But I think we had a pretty successful train station, and we had some amazing questions.
I love this topic.
Yeah,
this is one of my favorite ones so far.
And I'm so pumped. You guys ask great questions, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. I especially want to thank everybody that dropped a super chat into the train station. It was so much fun seeing the lights go off in the train station, and then seeing the swimming corgi. It's kind of fun for me. You know what the most fun part is though? Dropping this. Kayl loves it. Can you tell? If this is your first time on the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We publish new videos every single week to help you to have a well-behaved four-legged family member. A huge thank you to our moderator, Dan the Man Luton. Dan, we appreciate all that you're doing and dropping links in the chat. Fear Fathom Gaming, I'm going to go offline, and I want you to drop that question in the comments, and I can answer it there if you drop it in the comments after this video renders. But I will definitely answer it.
Thank you.
On that note, I want to wish you guys happy training. I'm Ken.
I'm Kayl.
Bye for now, guys. See you later.
See ya.